Hey everyone, how are we tonight? I hope you're all very, very good tonight. Tuesday night stream, I thought I'd jump on. We've uploaded a couple of great courses this week. One on making things wide on the YouTube, but a really good course that I put a lot of time into, which is a tech house masterclass, but it's more important like how to get that extra 10%, and it's something which all my clients learn when they do the one-to-one mentorship. But I've done this course for you all to watch, so please say hello if you're watching in the chat and ask me any questions you like. That's what I'm here for. So tonight, to be quite honest with you, I didn't prepare. So I've just loaded up a track that I'm working on, and somebody called Alessandro asked me about making old school house. So like back in the day, you know, people were using samplers like this. This is the modern SP1200. You know, we did have the synths and stuff like that, but a lot of it was done through samples, and you can hear it, you know, specifically in like people like Todd Terry's kind of music and everything else, where he has got the hip hop samples and the stabs and everything else, and it's a key part to making house music. So I would say to you that, you know, if you want to make old school house music, do it the way that they did. They recorded from vinyl, which I've got a deck over there in the corner, into the mixer, into the sampler, you know, or into the computer, and get some old vinyl and sample the claps and the hi-hats and the snares recorded from vinyl, because, you know, it's the sound of the needle, the sound of the cables, the sound of the mixer. You know, a lot of these, that's how they were recorded in, and that's why they've got the sound, and that's why they're kind of 12-bit and everything else. And they were just samples of other records that they, you know, hits and chops that people used in all these records. When you listen to the French records, or you look at like Todd Terry and all them kind of guys. So, I mean, if you look at an Armand Van Helden record, you know, like, I think you don't even know me. Besides the vocal, it's all samples. The drums, all the drums, like 2 or 3 drums. So, good evening, Aaron, Stefan. How are you tonight? Any questions for me? So, what I've done with this track here is I've done it the same kind of way. I've done it 100% analog, and besides a couple of bits. So the kick I got out of that little kick synth there. I don't know if you can see it next to the 303. Oh, I can't do that. It's called an M Bass 2 or M Bass 11, and it's yeah, it's really good. It's not amazing. I might have to look for another kick synth. So if you know one, let me know, everybody. So I'll go for an analog kick, and this is the sound of it. And you can hear it sounds quite round, but it needs a lot of compression. We've got a bit of a DBX on there just to tighten it up. But to be honest with you, I might distort that a little bit, so I'd probably go for something like Decapitator. Okay, so that's saturating the whole kick. So what I'd probably do is create that on a send or in a group. So I create a chain, which is basically a dry and then a wet, and then I'd probably EQ the saturation and add that in. Just find the frequencies that I want to add to the kick. So we'll just listen to the wet signal. And then introduce it. Yeah, it's not the sound I'm looking for. So I'll probably do the same kind of thing. Just find a plugin that really works it, but I probably wouldn't do it on the whole kick. Well, we'll try both. But like, I like the Black Box HG2. That's good for this kind of stuff. So I like what that's doing to the bottom end. And I'd probably just distort it to make it sound a bit more like an old style kick. But you know, a lot of these kicks were distorted because they were driven through certain units and clipping. So the thing about distorted kicks is when you distort them, they take up loads of frequencies. Sorry, I wasn't sharing my screen. What I was doing then was I was using the DBX for a bit of compression, UAD. I tried the decapitator, but then I went to the black box just to try and get a bit of distortion, just to listen to what it sounds like. And I'll find a sound that I'm looking for. But you know, to be quite honest with you, I would probably find a distorted kick if that's what I wanted. The problem you got when you distort a kick is it takes up loads of frequencies when you can really hear it like that in a lot of the house tracks. So that's why a lot of the time, you know, when you have a distorted kick, there's not a lot else in the track because the kick's taking out all of them frequencies from the mix. So yeah, you can do that, but this is an analog kick. And then I got the bass from a Moog, so old school. I mean, I use Trillion all the time. It's amazing. So trillion for bass. If you're trying to get that old school sound, it samples of all the old synths. So if we open this up, you can see, go to synth bass, analog classics. You've got, got them all, and they're all amazing. They're all really. Yeah, let's have a listen to a few. Probably needs to be an octave up. That's a great classic sound. All great sounds, and then the Moogs, really good. And then you've got things like the SH101. And the great thing about this plugin is, and why I use this, if you're trying to get the old school sound, is it just sounds like they've modelled it really well. Some of it is samples from the original synths, and some of it is synthesis. But, I don't use any other bass plugin. I might use Diva in more melodic techno stuff, but and they've just got loads of like body and energy in it, and this plugin is fantastic. It's only because they've got a Moog and a Prophet and the 303 that I use them. And the problem that I've got possibly is that I've not got a desk. So I've got the Moog, the Prophet and the 303, but I'm not running them through the desk. I'm not sampling them in, well I do sometimes, into the S2400. So even though I've got them synths, right, they might be analog and bigger sounds, but I'm not getting the old school lo-fi sound of going through compressors and equipment and crappy desks, which is what most electronic music producers had back in the day. So it's always good, to have not just the synth, but what goes in between for getting that old school sound. So that's bass. That's really a good sound. And then these are all the drums that I did in the S2400. Well, I've recorded all these in. Let's have a listen. So the M1 organ I did in the computer, sent it out to the S2400 sampler and redid it 12-bit. Basic piano, and then I've got a piano I did the same thing. And the reason why I brought it back in is because I've got a UAD. Hey Victor, hope you're good. I've got UAD, which is 2 in 2 out, and I bought something called the Audient, which is just here, and it's called an Audient ASP 800, and I bought it because it's got 8 inputs that can go into your UAD and create another 8 channels of input, only input. But what happened when it came was I didn't know this when I bought it, but it's got 2 channels of saturation, channel 1 and channel 2, and it's got 2 different kinds of saturation. Like I think it's like diode and pentode, just like the HG2 we were showing you then, and it sounds amazing. So when I run, like everything I do now, I run back through this, and I think it was about 600 quid. That was it. And it's amazing. So now I run everything through that, And so I've got everything going into, well, I just bought this box, the Franklin SS6. So obviously I don't play all the synths together. I do them all one by one. So everything goes into the Franklin, and the Franklin goes into the Audience, which then goes into the UAD. And it just gives you a bit more saturation. One for then, I don't need to use plugins really. So that's the piano. Good evening, Kip. How are you, my mate? So that was the piano. And if you look at what I've done, like this is ready to go. What if I put on the piano? So I've got a bit of compression. Just controlling dynamics slightly, but giving it a bit more body. I really like that. I have then added some saturation. I would have added this at the end of the mix just because I thought the piano needed to cut through. Yeah, it's just giving it a tiny little boost around 2K. And then I've got my favourite plugin. It's a pain in the arse, but it's my favourite. It's the Mutator, and it's what Daft Punk used and people like that. And it's got a sound that I recognise loads off old records. And there was a big filtered house time about I don't know, was it the 2000s with Azuli and when Big Love came out? And I can hear, I've got the Moog filter on UAD, and I've got the Moog filter and the Prophet filter. Is it Prophet filter? On Arturia. And they just never cut it. And then I got this and I heard it, and it was like, wow, this is amazing. It was on sale recently for $29, and I paid like 100 and odd for it. So the pain in the arse is they don't link, so you've got to create macros for them. So the cutoff here, if you look at it, is connected to the two. But let's have a listen to that in the mix. Beautiful. That does remind me of a load of really good records from back in the day. So any questions for us, everybody? I'm just going over a bit of an old school. Somebody asked me today about an old school house track. You know, can I make something about old school? And it's, yeah, a lot of it was about samplers. It was about the sounds that you used, how they were recorded in from vinyl, going in. And trying to recreate it nowadays is hard, but this plugin's really good. Really good. And obviously, of course, in the old days, it was the sound of the filter and the circuitry and that as well. So that's that. I've then got the acid, which is a 303. And obviously, that's one take. I've just automated the different parameters have gone on. But a bit more distortion. It's the Arturia. Just giving it a bit of grit in the mid-range, nothing major. I would have tried this saturation and didn't prefer it. Oh, it's in mono, but it is a mono synth anyway, so I don't know why I've done that. It's not making a difference. I've then got the Lexicon UAD reverb, again old school reverb sounding, quite authentic. I've got the dry, and then I've got a bit of ozone with an EQ8. I might just put on SED there. So if you watched my mid-side video, stereo width video I've just put up on the site on YouTube, I use this quite a lot now. And what it does, it takes out the signal in the middle, and the reason why it does that, well, it does it, it takes out the mids, which means just keeps the side signal there, so I'm not phasing with the sound in the center. Let's listen to that. I think it just keeps the transients in the center a little bit more. It's really good. Who doesn't like a bit of 303? And then just got a little line that we did. And you can hear I really pushed that through the saturation. And that's from the Moog. Bit of compression. Bit of, let's have a listen to what that is. So just a bit of reverb. I'm sure there was something else in there then. Oh yeah, $80,000. Just something to make it wider. Great plugin this. It's useful for so many things. It's basically like a Haas delay type thing. And you can pitch up the left and the right and create all sorts of stuff. It's a classic machine. So I've got that. Any questions for me? Everybody? Clap, just from the S2400. Snare roll, I just did them in there. Crashes from the S2400. Open hat. Actually, sounds a bit like it's got a bit of a click in there. So just let me try this first of all. Couldn't hear it in there, but I always like to address it. Then a ride, and again, there's not a lot on these things, so you know it's because I've used the quality samples first of all, and then just some basic effects. And I finished a track like this, and then I thought, right, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do the extra 10%. I'm going to do loads of other things, but this track just didn't need it. Just doesn't need that being done to the track. So I just said, no, I'm not going to do it. And the reason for that is I've got the movement with the filters. I've got the movement on the acid opening and closing. And the drums keep building up and building up. And I have my drops quite often and my fills. So there is quite a little bit, but nothing too major. And it's just, you know, two elements that are keeping the track driving. Well, there's not, but the two leads are the acid and the piano. And everything else is working with them. Victor said, should we use an older track as a reference to achieve a similar sound-wise? Well, if you're trying to go exactly for that old school sound, then yes. The problem you've got with it is this. Is you want like your lead sound to be like old school and a few things to be old school. But I find that I just did a track and I made it old school and I referenced it to an old school track and it sounded old school. It was all done, recorded in through the decks and all that kind of stuff. Where is it? Oh, I must have Google it. And this is it. But it just didn't have the punch of the other tracks. Just, you know, you're limited. I limited myself to making this track, to using on the equipment I've got. You used to love me, you used to touch me. And it just couldn't get it to just kind of slam like the more modern tracks. And obviously I've used quite a famous vocal there. Thank you, Soren. Thanks for coming on board. And I just couldn't get it to sound like this. Which is all analog gear. It's just a bit cleaner, you know. And when you listen back to them old tracks and you play them, they have got the magic and they are great songs, and it is a part of it. But I like to have a mixture between modern and old school for my vibe. That's my sound, and I think that, you know, a lot of the time the kick needs to be a modern kick. I think. I've not got a great analog kick, but when I'm making tracks in the S2400, the kick will always generally be 16-bit instead of 12-bit. So, yeah, you know, it's about what you're looking for. You got to remember, like, the loops. You might have a 909 drum machine with sampled loops as well, and then everything else on top. In them days, it sounded great. You know, sound systems people weren't listen to it in clubs, and it was about that mid-range, so it didn't matter. But now it's a bit different. So referencing, yeah, it all depends what you're looking for. But if you want people to play it nowadays, generally, you know, it needs to slam and punch. Victor said it seems like the kick is important to get the older vibe. No, you see, I think yes for the tone, right? Because now it's really hard to find them tones of those old school kicks, because, you know, each of them were done in their own way. Like Brian Tappett's Sulfuric records, his kicks are amazing, and I tried to get some off him, and he said no. And he basically just used to get them, record them in from the 909 or the whatever, put them through the SSL desk, drive them like hell, bounce them back down again, put them into the sampler sometimes, and then that was all out. So there's different processes, but you know, I think nowadays if you look hard, there is some really good kicks that are old school. Do you know what I mean? And you know, from like just like these raw kicks. So that's a good one. That's good. That's good. You see, that last one is like the kind of general thing you'll get, but it's got no weight to it. It's got no body, whereas this one, it's got a load of body. You can see here. Oh, you can't. It's flat-lined. So it's clipped out. That's what the distortion is. Someone says there's a free plugin called Codec. You can make it 14-bit, etc. Yeah, I use Decimote. It's not free though. It's by D16. That's it there, and you can change it here. It's a great plugin. I do use it all the time. I use that a lot on hi-hats, but it doesn't sound the same. Doesn't sound the same at all. In fact, let me show you the loop actually. So if I go, I remember project. Let's open that up. So let's go into the samples. So this is it sampled. No, it's not. Let's find the samples actually. Recorded. Well, these were all from the S2400 samples. Here we go. So that's the original sample. That's just the sound we made on the Moog. That's a chop up for the sample. So, okay, so that's what we did. So we recorded it in fast to get that old school sound. You can hear how gritty it is. That's it originally. You can hear it from the vinyl, can't you? So yes, so that was it. And there was one actually which had the really gritty sound. We didn't use it. There was two ways to record it into the S2400, and it was, one of them had too much aliasing on it, so that good aliasing that you really like. But yes, that's the way to get your sample. So now I think what I'll do with this track is, I think I will I think I'll get it, and I think I'll probably just do everything else a bit more modern, and obviously not too modern, but doing it all on the S2400, I liked it, and it's a vibe sometimes, but I just didn't get it right this time. Any questions for me, guys, girls? That's what I'm here for, to answer your questions. Have a chat. Have you checked out my new course, Tech House Masterclass? And getting that extra 10%, it is essential for most people. It's a really good course, and I also updated the stereo width one, which is a really good course for you to look at. It's all free here on YouTube. Okay, so this is the original project. So I'd probably get rid of the bass. I'd probably start again and go straight to the sample. Let's have a listen to that. That's the key part. Really like that. I'd probably just really strip back the drums. And the thing about using samples like this is that because it's a full track, yeah, and then we've filtered the bass out, and it's got all that distortion in from when it was sampled, that there's not a lot of room for anything. There's a lot of highs in there. There's a lot of everything else in there. You know, I might just put a slamming bass line with this. Yeah, and they're probably not the right kicks for it. I'd probably just go for something like this. And that's it. That's all it needs. It doesn't need loads of loops. It doesn't need loads of stuff in there. And I'll probably go back to this track actually and redo it, because yeah, I'm not feeling the fully analog version. And a lot of the samples nowadays are sampled from old analog machines and recorded in a certain way. You've just got to get good samples from good sample packs. Right. Have you ever used Air Windows Consolidated? No, I've not. It's great to an old school console vibe. You know, I did have the SSL. So I used that with the SSL strips, which I really liked. But you're kind of keeping yourself tied into one kind of channel strip and everything else. And sometimes I like to use different things, and sometimes I just need a Pro Q4, you know. Sometimes I just need a Pro Q3. So I've got the Sheps one, and I like the idea of the flow of just using one of those. But then when you know about other things that might be better, you go to it and then you don't use it. And I know the Soft Tubes one's there, but no, I'm not for me that. I will check it out. I make techno, but I want to produce house. I tried one track now, but it doesn't cut it at the moment. Right, listen, Soren. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do mix reviews. So if anybody wants me to mix down their tracks, like here now, I'll do it in this session and maybe just go over an hour. Like tonight's just an hour, but people I've done it for before have really enjoyed it. And Aaron, who's on, I did it for him, and it's really hard to take criticism anyway, and it's really hard to take it online and it be there forever. But we've all been there. We're all learning. So if you want me to look at it, I can do, and I can do a mix review on here. Yeah, so yeah, just message me on Instagram, Soren, at Jason Heard Music. Victor said, lately I've been seeing video on adding air to your music by recording your sound outside the box, then blend it back in with the mix with the original sound. What do you think of that? No rules. No rules. Try it. If it works, brilliant. If it doesn't, you had a bit of fun trying it. Then you know for definite then, don't you? What DAW are you working, Soren? Just send me a project. I'll do it in your project like this. I'll open your project. Send me a message. I'll email you and I'll tell you what I need, because you need to sign it off. Because if you ever sign that record to somebody else, I need permission to keep it on my YouTube, you see. So I've got a little document you've got to sign so that I can use it. We don't play it in full. Any questions, anybody? You see, a lot of people who come to me, they would get this now. They might get the sample and think, right, I've got to add loads of things. I think it does need something just to drive it. Yeah, I don't think the real bass is really cutting it. I'd probably get a trillion in there and do something with that. A bit more offbeat, do it a bit more, maybe just make it punch a little bit more, like. Kasim style, that might work. What do you think? A bit disco-y. So what I'd do is, here's a great little trick for you as well, right? If you're wondering what the notes are, obviously you can go like, well, first of all, let's try this. Someone said to me, right click, convert to new MIDI track, and I'm assuming it's supposed to be like find the notes of it. Let's have a listen to that. No, it's not. That doesn't work. What I always did back in the day, because I get a keyboard player in, I would use this. I would get Melodyne, I would put it on that, and then record it in. And then you've got the notes, and then you can look at them and kind of get an idea of what's kind of, there's like an A on the offbeat, isn't there? Right, that's your kick, and you've got an A on the offbeat, and then work around that. Find out what the key is, and just build your bass line. You could redo this and then just move the notes around. But I think something like this, I'm not saying this is the one. I have to draw it in. It takes me a bit of time because I'm not a musician. Just have a bit of movement in it. I might go for something a bit more like that with it. That's very simple, but it just makes this track a bit more modern. Thank you, Aaron. Okay, any questions, anyone? That's what I'm here for. Ask me anything. I've been in the game for 30 years. I've seen a lot. I've recorded a lot. I'm here to try and answer your questions. And yeah. This, okay, bonus points. What record sampled this same sample? Classic house track. Old school. Any ideas? So yeah, so I think the key to this last bit is, don't add things in unless you have to add them in. And the way I teach people is start with lead 1, then lead 2, then lead 3, then lead 4. Yeah? And then, don't just think, oh, I've got to add a loop in. Oh, that track has a loop in. You've got to go, what works for this track? There's not space for much else in this track. Could possibly have a snare. Oh, there is a snare in there. It's just making it. That's exactly what it is, Cooley. That's exactly what it is. It's a sample from the vinyl. I've got the vinyl there, and I recorded it in from the deck into the mixer, from the mixer into the S2400, which is there if you just joined us, from the S2400 into the Audience for some saturation, and yeah, that's how it sounded. Well spotted. So I did a bit of a bootleg, just messing around one day, and I got that. I've got this vocal as well, which I'm sure you know. It's not perfectly in key, but yeah, that's it. The thing about using samples is you don't need to put a lot in there, and I might try and put something, but what I'll probably do is I'll probably change the bass and just make it a bit more slamming. So yeah, so Soren hit me up on social media and we'll do a mix review. I'm here every Tuesday, everybody, and I really want to answer your questions. So come prepared, and if you want me to mix your track down and do a mix review on here, I will do. So thanks everybody for watching. Any questions before we go? Please go and look at my new courses. There's a great one on stereo width and a great one on getting the extra 10% on my YouTube page. They're not going to be here for long. Like my One Kid one, like the Todd Terry one, the one I did with Todd Terry, that's now on Fader Pro, so I'll take it off YouTube, but I'm just trying to build up my YouTube for myself, so I'm trying to give some stuff away for free wherever possible. If you've liked this, please like. If you've enjoyed it, please like it and leave a comment after when it's finished in the comments section. It really helps me. And see you next Tuesday. And guys, hit me up if you want me to do a mix. Thank you very much for taking part.